My mom looked me straight in the eye and said, "We just can't afford to take two, Ella. It wouldn't be fair to cancel when everything's already booked. Your sister is going on the trip. You'll understand. You always do." That was the moment something inside me finally cracked. 26 years of being the understanding one, the girl who stayed home, covered bills, cooked meals, and bought half the things in that house. And now I was supposed to smile while they sent my sister on a dream vacation and left me behind like a spare chair in the corner. I laughed, but it came out sharp, almost hysterical. "Right," I said. "Of course, I'll understand." They thought it was just another time I'd swallow the disappointment and carry on. They had no idea that while they were packing bikinis and beach outfits, I was mentally packing something else entirely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't planning how to survive in that house. I was planning how to leave it and what I was going to take with me when I did. They kept talking about budget, timing, and promises, as if those words justified everything. They didn't notice the way I watched the furniture, the appliances, the TV, the things I had worked double shifts to pay for. They didn't realize I was ticking them off in my head, one by one, like items on a shopping list I already owned. They thought they were leaving me behind. They had no idea that by the time they came back from that vacation, the girl they always treated like background noise would be gone for good, and their precious home would echo in a way they'd never forget. Have you ever been treated like the extra in your own family? Tell me your story below. You don't get to that breaking point in one day. It builds, layer by layer, like dust no one bothers to wipe away until suddenly you're choking on it. A week before the trip, I was in the kitchen, standing at the counter I'd paid for, scrolling through emails from work. Rent reminder, utility notice, a polite thank you from my boss for staying late. Again, the usual reminders that my life revolved around responsibility. I heard my mom in the living room, her voice bright with excitement. "The resort sent the confirmation. Ocean view room, breakfast buffet, spa credit. She's going to love it." My chest tightened. I stepped out and leaned against the doorway, watching them. My mom was waving printed papers. My dad was nodding, pretending to care about details he'd already forgotten. My sister sat on the couch, flipping through her phone, grinning at swimsuit ads. Back then, I still hadn't heard the words, "We can't afford two tickets," yet. I just had that sinking feeling in my stomach, the one I always got when I knew something was about to feel unfair, but I'd be expected to swallow it. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "What's going on?" My mom turned like she'd just noticed I existed. "Oh, Ella, we're finalizing the trip. It's a big deal, you know, after everything that's been going on. Your sister really needs this break." I frowned. A break? From what? Her social life? My dad shot me a warning look. "Ella." One word, sharp enough to cut. I'd heard that tone my whole life. "Don't make it about you." A few days later, the truth dropped out of my mother's mouth like it was no big deal. We were at the dinner table, eating with plates I'd bought from my first grown-up paycheck. My mom put down her fork and sighed dramatically. "So, about the trip. There's something we need to explain." I already knew. My skin buzzed with dread. "We wanted to take you both," she said, "but we just can't afford two tickets this time. Prices went up, the resort fees are crazy, and your dad's hours got cut. We had to make a choice." I stared at her. "And you chose her." My mom flinched but didn't deny it. "We promised your sister months ago. She's been looking forward to this for so long. You've been so busy with work anyway. You hate crowds. You know that. You wouldn't enjoy it the same way." My dad chimed in, annoyed. "Don't turn this into drama, Ella. It's just a vacation. There will be other trips." I laughed bitterly. "Will there? Because I don't remember being invited to the last one either. Or the one before that." My sister looked uncomfortable, but not enough to give anything up. "Ella, come on," she said. Don't make them feel bad. You know how things are. We can't always do everything together. I felt my jaw clench. It wasn't about the trip. It was about the pattern. Birthdays where her gifts were thoughtful and mine were last minute. School events where they screamed for her from the stands and forgot to ask how I did. Nights when I stayed late at work to cover the electricity bill while she begged for money to go out. I live here too, I said quietly. I help pay for this house. But when it's time for something fun, I suddenly don't exist. My mom's expression hardened. That's not fair. We appreciate you. Do you? I shot back. Because every time something good happens, it's magically for her. Every sacrifice? That's me. Every bill? I'm there. But this vacation, this big special thing, it's, sorry, Ella, maybe next time. Silence settled over the table. For once, no one had a quick answer. My dad finally sighed. You're overreacting. You're an adult. You know life isn't always equal. Your sister is younger. She still needs these experiences. There it was, the same old excuse, dressed up as wisdom. Younger, needs more attention, more money, more everything. I needed you too, I replied, my voice lower now, trembling. I needed you when I was working double shifts instead of going to parties. When I was the one putting groceries on the table while you took her shopping. I needed you when I kept being the reliable one you could ignore because you knew I wouldn't explode. They looked everywhere but at me. The TV, their plates, the clock on the wall, anywhere but my face. That hurt more than the words. It told me exactly where I ranked. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every small moment that suddenly didn't feel so small. The time they forgot my college scholarship ceremony, but showed up early to my sister's cheer competition. The Christmas where my gift was a sweater 2 sizes too big and hers was a new phone. The night the power almost got shut off until I quietly paid the overdue bill. They had trained me to be okay with being invisible. Then they threw the vacation in my face as if I wouldn't notice the pattern. Only this time, I did. And the anger didn't fade overnight like it usually did. It grew. It sharpened. It started turning into something else. Something that looked a lot like a plan. If your parents chose a sibling over you, because life isn't always equal, would you swallow it? Or finally stand up for yourself? Comment what you'd do. The morning they left for the airport, the house felt like a stage set for a play I'd seen too many times. Suitcases lined up by the door. Laughter bouncing off the walls. My sister posing for photos in her cute airport outfit while my mom reminded her to tag the resort on Instagram. I stood near the kitchen, holding a mug I didn't even want, watching them act like this was all perfectly normal. My mom hugged me quickly, like she was checking off an item on a list. Don't forget to water the plants, okay? And if any packages arrive, just put them in the hallway. We'll bring you something nice from the gift shop. The words landed like insults. I forced a smile. Sure. Have fun. My dad patted my shoulder. We'll only be gone a week. Try to relax for once. Then they were gone, the door closing with a cheerful slam. Their laughter drifted down the driveway. Then the sound of the car engine faded away. The silence that followed was heavy and strangely satisfying. I set the mug down, walked into the living room, and really looked at everything. The couch, the TV, the coffee table, the shelves, the blender, the microwave, the dishes, the rug, the lamps, my furniture, my appliances, my decor. All the things I'd bought over the years because we can't afford to replace that right now, Ella. And you're the one with a stable job. I went to my room and pulled out a folder from the bottom drawer of my desk. Receipts, invoices, email confirmations, proof that these things were mine. Proof that I'd been keeping this house running while they played favorites. I'd saved everything without really knowing why. Now I did. I called a moving company and scheduled a truck for 2 days later. It's mostly furniture and appliances, I told the guy on the phone. Everything I personally paid for. I'm moving into a new place. He didn't care about the drama behind it. Why would he? But when he asked, "Will anyone else be there?" I felt a dark, calm satisfaction settle over me. "No," I said. "They're away." The next day, I went apartment hunting. I found a small one-bedroom a few blocks from the beach, close enough to smell the salt in the air but far enough from my parents' house that I wouldn't have to drive past it by accident. The rent wasn't cheap, but I'd been budgeting my whole life. My bank account could handle it. The landlord, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, handed me the lease after a quick glance at my pay stubs. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Moving out on your own is a big step." I smiled. "I've been on my own for years. This is just the first time it'll be official." On moving day, the truck pulled up to the curb in front of my parents' house. For a second, I panicked, imagining nosy neighbors texting my mom. But then I remembered. They were hours away, sipping airport lattes and posting stories like everything was perfect. I let the movers in and pointed things out with a clarity that surprised even me. The couch, the TV, that bookshelf, these bar stools, the microwave, the coffee maker, the dishes in this cabinet, the silverware, the rug under the table. All of that goes. One of the guys raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I held up my folder of receipts. "Positive." We worked for hours. The emptiness spread from room to room like a slow, deliberate storm. The living room went first, stripped of everything but the old recliner my dad had brought from his bachelor days and refused to throw out. The kitchen lost its shine piece by carefully recorded piece, leaving behind mismatched, scratched-up leftovers that weren't worth the cost of my time. Every time the movers asked, "This too?" I checked the folder, nodded, and watched another part of my quiet revenge click into place. I left some things on purpose. The ugly lamp my mom loved, the chipped side table my sister insisted on keeping, the discount mirror they bought when I first moved back home. I wanted them to see the difference between what I had provided and what they had chosen. I wanted the contrast to scream at them louder than I ever could. When the last box was loaded, I walked through the house one final time. It felt hollow, but not sad. It felt honest. For the first time, the house reflected how I'd always felt inside it. Like I was the one filling the empty spaces and no one noticed until I wasn't there. At my new apartment, I watched as the movers carried everything in, transforming the blank space into something warm and undeniably mine. My couch, my books, my dishes, my TV mounted on a wall that no one else had a claim to. I signed the final paperwork with the landlord, handed over the deposit, and locked the door behind me. I didn't leave a note for my family. No explanation. No apology. They'd always acted like my contributions didn't matter. Now they were about to find out exactly how much they'd taken for granted. And I'll be honest, knowing that they would walk into that gutted house, expecting everything to be just as they'd left it, filled me with a satisfaction I had never felt before. This wasn't just me leaving. This was me taking back every piece of myself they'd quietly used and ignored. If you were in my shoes, would you walk out quietly? Or take back every single thing you'd paid for and let them deal with the emptiness? Be honest in the comments. They came back on a Sunday evening. I wasn't there, obviously, but it felt like I was, because my phone started buzzing nonstop. First, it was Rachel, my best friend, who lived 2 houses down from my parents. She sent a picture. My mom on the porch, keys in hand, mouth hanging open. My dad standing behind her, fists clenched. My sister frozen halfway up the steps. Through the open doorway, I could see it. The emptiness. No couch. No TV. No rug. just the sad, faded impression of where things used to be. Girl, Rachel texted, they are losing it. I heard your mom scream from my kitchen. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with something wild and electric. I stared at the photo for a long moment, then put my phone face down. The calls started a few minutes later. First my mom, then my dad, then a flood of messages from my sister. I didn't pick up. I let it all go to voicemail. I made dinner in my new apartment, sat on my reclaimed couch, and turned on my TV. The same one they were probably accusing me of stealing right about now. I listened to the voicemails pile up. My mom crying, my dad shouting, my sister snapping pictures of empty rooms and sending them with, "What did you do?" I didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next morning either. On Monday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. 3 sharp, angry bangs. I knew that knock. My stomach flipped, but I forced myself to breathe. This was what I'd chosen. I opened the door. My parents pushed past me without waiting to be invited, eyes darting around my apartment. My mom's gaze landed on the TV. "There it is," she shouted. "I knew it. You took everything, Ella. How could you?" My dad's face was red. "This is insane. We come back from vacation and the house is stripped. What is wrong with you?" I shut the door calmly and leaned against it. "What's wrong with me?" I repeated. "You mean, what's wrong with me taking my own stuff?" My mom spun around. "Your own stuff. Those things are for the family. You can't just empty the house because you're jealous of a trip." I walked over to my small dining table, pulled out the folder of receipts, and let it slap down on the surface. "Sit," I said. "You want to talk about what's for the family? Let's start with who actually paid for it." They didn't sit, but they didn't leave either. That was enough. I flipped open the folder. The couch? Bought with my bonus last year. I tapped the paper. The TV? My tax refund split into 12 months of payments. The microwave? My card? The dishes? My first paycheck at the cafe? The rug? I saved for that for 3 months. You remember that? Or did you just assume it magically appeared because the house needed it? My mom's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for the right lie and couldn't find one fast enough. "We were going to pay you back," she said weakly. "We always meant to." I laughed. "You've been saying that for 5 years." 5 years. In the meantime, every time the bills were tight, who did you come to? Me. Every time something broke? Me. Every time you wanted to wait until things got better? Me. Again. But when it was time for something special, something fun, something you'd remember forever, that went to her. My sister stepped forward, eyes glossy. "Ella, okay, but this is extreme. You left the house empty. People are talking already. You made our family look crazy." Her words lit something in me. "Oh, now you care about how things look. Where was that energy when you were posting vacation selfies while I was sitting at home, being told they couldn't afford 2 tickets?" She flinched. My dad slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. This is childish. You want to move out? Fine. You're an adult. But taking everything? That's theft." I picked up a stack of receipts and waved them. "Go ahead. Call the police. Show them the paperwork. Tell them your daughter stole the couch she paid for. See how that goes." He glared at me, but he didn't reach for his phone. We all knew he wouldn't. He didn't want anyone else to know just how much they'd leaned on me. For a few seconds, the room went deadly quiet. This was the moment where, in some families, everything would soften. Tears, apologies, promises to change. That's not what happened. My mom sank into one of my chairs and put her head in her hands. "We were so worried when we came home," she said. "We thought something bad happened to you, and then we see that." You were worried about the furniture, I corrected. Not me. When was the last time you were really worried about me, Mom? Not just about whether I'd cover the power bill or drive someone somewhere, but about how I was actually doing? She didn't answer. My dad stared at the floor. My sister sniffled, but I noticed she was also glancing around the apartment, taking inventory of everything I'd managed to build for myself now that I wasn't focusing on keeping them comfortable. I'm not coming back, I said finally. This isn't a phase. This isn't a tantrum. I'm done being the backup daughter who holds everything together so you can pretend the golden child is the only one who matters. My dad rubbed his forehead. So what, that's it? You just cut us off? Over a vacation? I shook my head slowly. No, over years of being invisible. Over you telling me to my face that you couldn't afford to treat me like I mattered as much as her. Over you assuming I'd keep pouring money and energy into a house where I was just a shadow. My mother's shoulders shook. We made mistakes, she whispered. We didn't realize you felt this way. We were trying our best. Your best wasn't good enough, I said quietly, and now you get to live with it. They left a few minutes later, not with slammed doors this time, but with heavy footsteps and stunned silence. My sister was the last one out. At the doorway, she turned back. I'll call you later, she said. Don't, I replied. Not unless you're ready to talk about what you've done too. She swallowed and left. I locked the door behind them and leaned my forehead against it, my heart racing. I expected to feel guilty. I didn't. I felt clean. Like I'd finally told the truth out loud and the world hadn't ended. It had just shifted, rearranged itself around new boundaries that I should have set a long time ago. If your family stormed into your new place accusing you of stealing what you paid for, would you back down? Or stand your ground like I did? Share your thoughts. The fallout came fast. In a small beachfront town, drama spreads faster than the tide. By midweek, people at the cafe were whispering about that family whose daughter had moved out and emptied the house. Some told the story like I was a villain. Others, especially the ones who knew me, lowered their voices and said, honestly, good for her. Rachel filled in the details. They came back furious, she told me during my break, stirring her iced coffee. Your mom was yelling in the driveway, saying you'd betrayed them. Your dad was talking about lawyers. But then the neighbors started asking questions, like, didn't Ella pay for most of that stuff? You should have seen their faces. I imagined it, and the satisfaction was almost dizzying. My parents hadn't just lost furniture. They'd lost the image they'd spent years projecting. The stable, loving family with a hard-working older daughter and a sparkling younger one. Now people were asking why their hard-working older daughter had quietly moved out and taken everything she owned. Why their house looked like it had been robbed while they were on vacation. Why the Golden family suddenly had cracks running through the middle. My sister tried to control the narrative on social media. One day, she posted a photo from the trip with a caption about learning who really has your back. The comments section did not go the way she expected. Someone from high school wrote, "Didn't your sister help your family a lot? This seems harsh." Another person added, "Heard she basically furnished the whole house. If that's true, I'd take my stuff too." I didn't like being the center of gossip, but I couldn't lie. The idea that people were finally seeing behind the curtain, that felt like payback in its own quiet way. Meanwhile, my parents were forced to live with the consequences in a very practical sense. Rachel said the first time she went over to drop something off, the house looked sad. Their word, not mine. Old recliner, bare floors, echoing kitchen. The kind of emptiness you can't fix with a scented candle and a throw pillow. My dad complained loudly about how expensive it was going to be to replace everything. We didn't realize how much she'd bought, he kept saying, as if that was some kind of defense. My mom snapped at him in the yard one day, loud enough for Rachel to overhear. If you hadn't always run to Ella for money, we wouldn't be in this mess. For once, they weren't blaming me to my face. They were blaming each other. As for my sister, the fallout hit her in a different way. She'd returned from her trip expecting to bask in the glow of her vacation photos and summer stories. Instead, she walked into a half-empty house, parents who were constantly arguing, and whispers at her job about being the favorite one whose sister finally had enough. A girl she worked with apparently asked her point blank, "Is it true your family left your sister home because you couldn't afford 2 tickets?" My sister, who'd always been so confident, so ready with a comeback, had no good answer to that. Rachel told me she looked small for the first time. Not pathetic, but stunned. Like the golden pedestal had been kicked out from under her, and she had no idea how to balance on her own feet. While they scrambled to make sense of their new reality, I was quietly building mine. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, not because I had to anymore, but because I wanted to pad my savings. My apartment started to feel like home. I hung pictures on the walls, not of fake family memories, but of the ocean, sunsets, and little Polaroids Rachel and I took on random weekday nights. I bought myself a plant, then 2, then a third. I cooked dinner in my own kitchen and ate at my own table whenever I felt like it. Not according to some unspoken schedule I was expected to maintain. One afternoon, my manager pulled me aside. "You've been killing it lately," she said. "We've been talking about promoting you to assistant manager. Interested?" I almost laughed at the timing. While my parents were sitting in a half-empty house complaining about how much I'd taken from them, I was being offered more. More responsibility, yes, but also more control, more money, more proof that when I invested in myself instead of in people who didn't see my worth, things actually grew. Of course, not everything was triumph and freedom. There were nights when the silence in my apartment felt too loud, when the weight of what I'd done pressed on my chest. I had left. I had taken everything that was mine. I had forced my family to confront their own neglect by removing the safety net I'd always provided. Sometimes I wondered if I'd gone too far. Then I'd remember my mom's words. "We can't afford to take 2, your sister is going," and the way they'd expected me to nod and accept it. I'd picture them walking into that stripped-down house, the echo of their own choices finally catching up with them, and I'd think, no, this wasn't too far. This was exactly as far as I needed to go. Do you think making them live in that empty house was petty, or the only way they'd ever understand what they'd done? Let me know what side you're on. A little over a week after the big confrontation at my apartment, my phone lit up with my sister's name again. I'd been ignoring most of her calls, letting her messages pile up like unopened mail. But this time, something in me hesitated. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that, unlike our parents, she was still young enough to change. I answered. "Ella?" Her voice was small, not dramatic, not rehearsed, just tired. "Hey," I said cautiously. "What do you want?" "Can we meet?" she asked. "Not at the house. Somewhere neutral." I thought about hanging up, about keeping the clean line I'd drawn. But then I remembered all the years where it had been me and her against the world, before the favoritism became obvious, before the roles hardened. "Fine," I said. "The beachside diner. Tomorrow. 5 p.m. "Okay," she breathed. "Thank you." The next day, she was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth with a half-empty glass of water. No makeup, no Instagram-ready outfit. Just my sister, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen. "You look different," I said as I sat down. She snorted. "Yeah, well, it's been a week." We stared at each other for a few seconds, the silence heavy with everything that hadn't been said. Finally, she sighed. I'm not here to guilt you, she began. I promise. I know that's what you're expecting. I didn't respond, so she kept going. I just, I need to understand. I mean, I know the vacation was messed up. I knew it when Mom told me, but she said you were fine with it, that you understood. She always said that. About everything. That stung more than I expected. Of course she did, I said quietly. It's easier than admitting they were using me. She fiddled with the edge of a napkin. I grew up thinking that was normal, you know? That you liked being the responsible one, that you didn't care about the trips, the attention, the whatever. They always said, Ella's different. She doesn't need all that. So I stopped asking where you were in the pictures or why you weren't included. I just thought you didn't want to be. I rolled my eyes, but there wasn't much venom in it. I wanted to be, I said. I just learned early that wanting didn't matter. If I didn't pick up the slack, no one would. So I did. And then they decided that meant I didn't deserve anything extra. Just more work. She swallowed hard. When we came back and saw the house, I was mad at you at first. I thought, how could she do this to us? But then I started adding things up. She looked up at me. Ella, I had no idea how much you'd been paying for. I knew you helped, but Mom and Dad always made it sound like it was, I don't know, voluntary. Like you were being dramatic if you ever brought it up. Well, now you know, I said. Congratulations. The curtain's been pulled back. She winced. They're not handling it well. Dad keeps talking about how disrespectful it was. Mom cries a lot. They fight more than I've ever seen. And everyone in the neighborhood is watching. Good, I replied before I could stop myself. Maybe being watched will make them think about how they look when they treat one daughter like a maid and the other like a princess. She didn't argue. That surprised me. I can't defend what they did, she said. I'm not even going to try. I don't want to lose you because of them. I'm sorry, Ella. For every time I didn't notice, or didn't ask, or enjoyed something I knew you weren't invited to and told myself, that's just how it is. I was selfish. I liked being the favorite. It made me ignore how much it hurt you. Her voice wobbled on the last sentence. I stared at my sister, the girl who had always seemed so carefree, so sure the world would bend to her. For the first time, I saw the cracks, the doubt, the shame. You benefited, I said slowly. Even if you didn't create the system, you enjoyed it. I know, she whispered, and I hate that I did. I hate that I didn't stand up for you. When Mom said they could only afford one ticket, I should have refused to go without you. I didn't. I told myself it was already booked and too late to change. But the truth is, I wanted to go, and I didn't want to risk losing it. That honesty hit me harder than any excuse would have. It was ugly and real, and exactly the kind of thing I'd been needing to hear. I took a deep breath. I won't lie. I wanted you to feel it, I said. The shock, the loss, the embarrassment. Not because I don't love you, but because you've been protected from consequences your whole life. I wanted you to know what it's like when someone makes a decision that benefits them and leaves you to deal with the fallout. She nodded slowly. I get that now. I really do. And I know an apology doesn't fix it. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry they chose me. I'm sorry I let them. I'm sorry I didn't see you were drowning while I was floating. We sat there in silence for a while. The waitress refilled our waters and gave us a sympathetic smile she probably didn't even realize she was giving. Outside, the ocean glinted in the fading light. I'm not ready to forgive them, I said finally. Maybe I never will. But you? I paused, searching for the right words. You're not innocent, but you're not them. And you're here. That counts for something. Tears slipped down her cheeks. So, what now? She asked. Now, I said, you decide who you want to be. Their golden child who pretends this is all my fault, or the person who finally tells them the truth about what they've done. She swallowed. They're not going to listen to me. Maybe not, I said. But I won't even consider letting you back into my life if you're not at least willing to try. She met my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were on the same side of something. I'll try, she said firmly. I'll stand up for you. Even if they hate it. I nodded. Then we'll see. When we left the diner, we didn't hug, but we didn't walk away from each other either. We walked in the same direction for a while, talking about nothing and everything, awkwardly building the outline of a new kind of relationship, one that wasn't scripted by our parents' favoritism. If your golden child sibling finally admitted they enjoyed the favoritism but wanted to change, would you give them another chance? Or keep your distance for good? Tell me what you'd do. A month passed before I saw my parents again. During that time, my life kept moving forward. I accepted the promotion at the cafe, assistant manager, a raise, more control over my schedule, and this quiet, steady sense of pride. My apartment felt more and more like home. I started a small savings account labeled Future Ella, money that, for once, wasn't secretly earmarked in my head for someone else's emergency. My sister kept her word. She called sometimes, not to beg me to fix things, but to update me on what was happening at the house. They're trying to replace the furniture, she said once, but it's slow. They didn't realize how expensive it was. They're fighting about money all the time now. Another time. Mom tried to tell Aunt Lisa that you overreacted. I told her that was a lie. I told her you'd been carrying them for years. She didn't like hearing that. It wasn't magic. It didn't erase everything, but it was something. Eventually, the inevitable text came from my mom. Can we talk? Just once. Please. No yelling. We'll meet wherever you want. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, the one that still remembered kinder years, whispered that I should at least hear what they had to say. I chose a public place. A quiet cafe on the opposite side of town from both my apartment and their house. Neutral territory. When I walked in, they were already there, sitting at a corner table. They looked older than I remembered. Not in a dramatic way, just worn down. My mom's eyes were puffy. My dad's shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen from the man who always wanted to look in control. Thank you for coming, my mom said as I sat down. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I said honestly. No point lying now. My dad cleared his throat. We owe you an apology, he said, words stiff like they'd been rehearsed in the mirror. We handled things badly. I raised an eyebrow. Which things? The vacation? The years before it? The way you treated me like a walking bank account? He flinched. My mom took a shaky breath. All of it, she said quietly. We didn't see you? Not really. We saw what you did for us, not who you were. It was easier to lean on you than to admit we were struggling. And when your sister needed something, we gave it to her, because it felt good to be able to give her what we couldn't give you when you were younger. That made me pause. I hadn't expected her to touch that truth. So you spoiled her, I said slowly, because you felt guilty about how hard it was when I was a kid. And instead of making it up to me, you used me to finance your guilt. My mom's eyes filled with tears. When you say it like that, it sounds awful. It is awful, I replied. That's the point. My dad spoke up again, softer this time. We were proud of you, he said. How responsible you were. How steady. We convinced ourselves that meant you didn't need attention the way your sister did. That you were fine. We didn't realize how much we were taking advantage. I shook my head. You realized. You just didn't care enough to stop. You chose the path of least resistance. I was the path of least resistance. Silence stretched between us. At another table, someone laughed at a joke I couldn't hear. Life went on around us while our family tried to stitch something halfway decent out of torn fabric. "We're not asking you to move back," my mom said finally. "We know that's not happening. We're not even asking you to forgive us right away. We just, we don't want to lose you completely. We want a chance to do better, to be better, if you'll let us." I studied their faces. I saw guilt, fear, shame, and something else. Something like genuine regret. But regret wasn't the same as change. I'd learned that the hard way. "Here's what I'm willing to offer," I said. "I will stay in contact. I will answer calls sometimes. I might come by for short visits eventually, but I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm not your financial plan. If you're in trouble, you figure it out like everyone else. If you want a relationship with me, it's on equal footing. Respect or nothing." My dad nodded quickly. "Of course, we understand." "No," I said firmly. "You say you understand. Show me. You want proof you're changing? Go to family therapy, both of you. Not for one session. Commit to it. Learn why you thought it was okay to treat your daughter like this. Learn how not to do it again. To anyone." My mom blinked. "Therapy? I don't know if—" "Then that's your choice," I cut in. "And this is mine. I won't accept anything less." We stared at each other. After a moment, she exhaled. "If that's what it takes," she whispered, "we'll do it." My dad hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We'll look into it," he said. "No," I corrected. "You'll go, and you'll let me know when you start. Until then, nothing changes on my end." We talked a bit longer, not about furniture or money, but about small things. Work, weather, the cafe. It felt strange, like talking to distant relatives instead of the people who raised me. When we stood to leave, my mom reached out like she wanted to hug me. I stepped back slightly. "Not yet," I said gently. "Maybe one day." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. Walking back to my apartment, I realized something important. I didn't feel obligated to fix them anymore. Whatever they did next, therapy or denial, growth or stagnation, that was on them. My job was to protect the life I'd built. My sister texted me later that night. "They told me about therapy. I'm going too. If we're going to rebuild this family, we all have to show up differently, right?" I smiled a little. "Right," I replied. "But remember, if they don't follow through, you're allowed to make your own choices too." I curled up on my couch, the same one that had once sat in their living room, now firmly and permanently mine. I thought about the girl I'd been a few months ago, the one who stood in that kitchen hearing, "We can't afford to take two. Your sister is going," and almost accepted it as just another unfair thing in a long list. I thought about the version of me who packed up everything she owned, emptied a house, and walked away. And then I thought about the woman I was now. Someone who didn't just react, but set boundaries. Someone who knew her worth and demanded others recognize it too. My revenge wasn't just the empty rooms they'd come home to, or the gossip in the neighborhood, or the financial strain they now faced without my help. My real revenge was this. I took my life back. I made them see the hole I'd been filling all along. And whether they ever fully changed or not, I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone make me feel like the extra in my own story again. Is the best revenge walking away and building a life where you're finally valued, or making them live with the guilt and emptiness they created? If you were me, which ending would you choose? Comment below.